Hi, everybody. I'm Derek Mazzoni.
Hey,
This is Sama,
Hello.
Seattle Circuit Music and Art. I'm here with Carmen Rizzo. I'm here with Meriem and Amor. They are a duo, a project, in a band called Didon that I've been a fan of for quite a bit. They just relatively recently released a new record called Tunisian Tale, and through the magic of technology, we're chatting right now. Carmen is in Prague, Czech Republic. I almost said Czechoslovakia. Tells you how old I am. And Meriem Amor is in Vancouver, British Columbia. Hello, you two. How's
Hello.
life? How's life?
Life is good for me in Prague. It's warm today, so people are happy.
Okay.
hey. Life is beautiful, busy and happy life.
Good, good, good. I love the record. I've been playing it. I've been playing it in different settings. I took a walk a couple of days ago, listened to it here. I played it on my radio show on KXP, a few songs. Amon recently had a nice little vibe to it. And recently, in kind of like more of like a wellness process, I was in my sauna, I was playing it there, and then I was doing some meditation. I try to take a day or half a day, more likely than not. It's like, okay, me time, kind of chill out for a little bit. Um, and it works in every single setting. So I'm super curious, first of all, um, what was I want to talk about how you guys met, but I do want to get started with the record because that's what people have just heard before we came
Mm.
on the screen. What was the inspiration behind it?
I'll let Miriam start.
So for the to create the project Didon, it was Carmen's idea first, and we were planning to create something fun, light, and that has some North African flavors in it.
Mm-hmm.
And during the writing process, I wanted to have an idea, like scenario. So instead of building an album around the theme, I wanted to try something different for me, at least in songwriting, which is writing for characters. So there is main character, and there are other characters as well. That every song was either one of them telling his story, or it was the general story of the whole album. So it was like a kind of little scenario from song 1 to song 10 of the album.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a Tunisian story, the way I imagined a tale, like the title evoke, like a Tunisian tale.
Okay. And what is a Tunisian tale?
I imagined a Tunisian woman, and I tried to leave the time not specific. It could be from modern days, it could be something ancient. And I imagined charming princes and men coming from different regions to visit her and try to conquer her heart. And every song was either about her feelings, what she's expecting, or one of those people coming and traveling to reach Tunisia and to meet this raven lashes girl.
Okay. This is an interesting opportunity. And Carmen, I promise I'll get to you.
No,
Most people, when they think of Tunisia, they don't really know what they're talking about, or it just seems like a word. It's a song, or it's on a map. It's part of North Africa. They don't really know the history of it. In the West, obviously, I'm not saying everywhere. When they look on a map, they're shocked that it's super close to Sicily. It's like right by Malta, and it has a really interesting connection. What is Tunisia to you?
Tunisia, it's a beautiful small country on the Mediterranean, and it's multicultural, and probably one of the reasons why in the Western world people have one little idea about it, but not a more wide and big vision about it, is that because it's multicultural, everyone knows one of these little influences in Tunisia, because Tunisia is at the same time an African country. It's very close to Europe. It's Francophone country, so we speak French as we speak Arabic. It's been under the Ottoman Empire for so long as well, so we have some flavors, even in our music and our culinary habits from the Middle East. So some people know Tunisia as North African, so they know only the African side of it, or only the Arabic or the European side of it, but it has all these influences and everything in music, in our dialect, in our food, and everything.
When we last spoke, the Arab Spring was still fresh, and
Mhm.
Tunisia was the country where the Arab Spring started. And so politically it changed by that. And the Arab Spring affected all of North Africa, but it seems like Tunisia was one place where things changed, evolved in a really interesting way. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, definitely. Tunisia is kind of healing from dictatorship, healing in a very healthy way. There are different ways to heal. There is taking strong medication that can have strong side effects, and there is healing slowly and naturally with more natural remedies that can take too long, but on the long run, it's something more durable. And I think that's the path that Tunisia has been taking. So it's not easy to change the whole vision of a population towards the government, towards religion, towards so many topics, and it's been a long journey of over a decade now that we are taking step by step. Every time we try different approach, different political party, different, and you see the street bubbling, the news bubbling, things go right and wrong during that healing process. But I would say, in my personal opinion at least, that we are in a much better place than when we were like a decade ago. Definitely, we have freedom of speech. Women are gaining more and more their rights, and education is still number one priority, which is, I think, one of the reasons why the healing of Tunisia is happening in a nice, smooth way, is because of education, and that's still in the top priority in the Tunisian mind, at least. So I think we are in a kind of at least going towards a good place.
Okay, beautiful. And I think it's super important for artists such as yourselves that have an ability to present the country as it is right now. And like, music especially, other art forms too, but music especially can create, say, interest through the listener to the country. And an artist has an ability to convey the complexity of the region, the emotional complexity of the region in the area, more so than like somebody just lecturing you or news per se. So I was intrigued from the work that you've been doing and listening. It's like, okay, something's here. But the reality is also that you go to Tunisia, but now you're living in Canada. So what's that immigrant experience like for you?
For me personally, it's a little bit more like a nice bubble. I love the weather here because, for example, the weather allows me to be more productive in Vancouver, as an example. Life is a little more calm. Like in Tunisia, we love hanging out, going out, big families. The weather is always beautiful, partying and things like that. And that's a very beautiful lifestyle, of course. But I'm in a certain point of my life and career that I am trying to get more education, more music experiences, more collaboration, and that requires a lots of time. So being in Vancouver is very fruitful and very helpful. Also, as a world music artist, being in Vancouver is kind of heaven because I get to meet artists from wide range
That's
of
true.
cultural backgrounds and music experiences. So it's been a wonderful experience. I would say I am blessed to have the warmth that I'm getting and the artistic influences I'm getting from Tunisian culture, and also the wonderful artistic experience here in Vancouver.
All right on. Okay, that's so true. It is a very
Mm.
diverse city. Okay, uh, Priyam, I appreciate your work, and
Thank
but the band came about because you decided to call my friend Carmen Rizzo and said, "Hey, what are you doing? You busy?" And then what happened?
Is this for
Carl.
me to
Yeah,
answer?
yeah, yeah. You got the call.
I got the call, but it was really Miriam's vision. Um, I was fortunate to work with her on her first album, or the album that we did,
Hmm.
and it was, pretty successful. And a certain level for us, and then we did the remix album, and then we just sort of talked about doing something more as a duo as opposed to me producing her. And I have experience, as you know, from other
Yes.
projects
Yeah.
like Niaz, for instance. I co-founded that, and we just started. So, I think Meriem had more of a vision, like she had just mentioned, about the idea of this. But something that interested me a lot was original lyrics, original melody, and trying our hardest to be just original. And not
Hmm.
to say that I don't do that with other projects, because of course I want to and I'm lucky to, but a lot of the lyrics on other projects were taken from Rumi or traditional folk songs, or which is different.
Yeah.
But with Meriem writing original stuff, and that was really attractive to me, and really taking the roots from one country, one place, Tunisia, as opposed to, let's say, with Niaz, different languages, different influences, India, Iran, Turkey, go down the list. So everything that she brought to the table, I was just happy and excited to be a part of. So I just was happy to be involved with her, because I'm generally a fan of hers. So
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
Miriam.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, you've been at this for a while, so
Yeah.
you can kind of take your pick of who you want to work with.
Well, I'm very lucky that I've always worked with wonderful singers and writers and musicians. But sorry, Miriam, and I mean, not to talk to you in like third voice or third party, but like, when you hear her sing, Derek, I mean, it's really unbelievable.
No,
Her
it's
voice,
it's an emotional
she
response.
can move mountains, and it's
Yeah,
just really it's nice. So it's very rewarding for me.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
But the fact
Yeah.
is that you've never freaking meet.
We've never met, and this is a sore subject because this always comes up, and I think it's kind of funny because we talked about this off air. Like I'm trying to manifest that if we're lucky to win a trophy or an award, Grammys or Juno or something, we're going to meet on stage.
Hmm.
that's,
Will you
that's
though?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hope so.
I think
Hope so.
I hope so. Well,
Um,
not to say that a trophy is justification of a good music project, because that's another conversation. But I just hope that it's recognized by our peers.
yeah. No, it's a beautiful record, and it has legs, which is
Thank you.
nice to hear. And I'm curious. You produced, and you started to form a record. You guys haven't met, and you're doing this work, so it seems like you're having fun in this particular way. Can you go through the process? It's like, how did the record come about? Is it, you have a studio, tracks get sent, and then just go back and forth? And what do you think of this? Making changes, or how does
Yeah.
that?
Do you
What's
want
the
me to
production
start,
process? Yeah.
or do you want to start, Miriam?
Yeah, I can start by the writing, probably the writing process. The recording and the songwriting, it happens 24/7. I'm always with the recorder, walking, cooking, uh, sometimes just focusing on the recording, but the writing happens nonstop. And then once I have a clear idea and melody and everything, I record the vocals and write the melody, MIDI files and all that, and then I send to Carmen. Then he starts with the first demos. Then sometimes he sends me back, and we adjust the vocal layers to that. So there is lots of back and forth. There is lots of communication. I was asked before if, for example, I give the melodies and everything to Carmen and that's it, and the work stops there. But actually, Carmen's does a huge work. There is lots of back and forth. There's lots of communication. It's true that we never met, but I think we have a really strong relationship, and our communication is very solid. And in my very modest experience, I've seen people in studio is communicating with less spontaneity than me and Carmen by distance. So really distance, I personally, at least with Carmen, never felt distance was something negative. We learned how to understand and respect each other's time zones. So we make things happen, I believe, because we both have the same kind of goals and we really want this to be done the best way possible. So we always find ways to communicate. So I believe the key here is we really communicate well and a lot.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think one strong element, right, is we challenge each other, where it's not she gives me something or I give her something and it's done. We'll challenge each other of this can be better, or this is good enough, or stop. Another thing that I want to point out is, and I make this clear when this comes up in conversation, is that my partner in this project is not just a singer. And I make that clear from the beginning. With Meriem, she's a writer, she's a great musician, she's a technologist as well. So we share those elements where some other projects, somebody might only be a singer, not to take away from being just a singer, but this is truly a collaboration between the two of us. And I think that that's important to point out, because we only brought in one other musician, was Jimmy McLeese, who I've worked with for a long time, and he had played on Miriam's solo record, who plays oud and saz and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was the only other person. Everything else was the two of us.
Oh, right on. So it's a full, interesting. It reminds me of, remember the Postal Service?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that initial process. And I'm curious because there is a art will create, the impetus to make something. And you can have carte blanche everything, all your musicians in front of you there, full symphony, etc. And sometimes you have limitations, and out of those limitations, new art forms, new tools start coming up that you wouldn't use, and so different forms. I'm curious, and we can trip on this, we can extrapolate on this. The fact that you haven't met, and the fact that you're working in this way, how do you think that affects the music that you're making?
Well, I'll start with that, Meriem. I think for me, from making a lot of records, there's an advantage of being in the same room and noodling and doing or whatever. And wait, that's a good idea. No, stop, But sometimes I like to kind of woodshed on my own before I prepare something. And I'm certain Meriem might do the same. So I don't think we know any different way. So we just kind of use these challenges to our advantage, with time difference, a very different lifestyle. We're both parents, but my kids are older and on their own, and your kids are younger and still at home. So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
This point for me, actually, I don't see lots of limitations, but it's more kind of liberating, because I've been, for example, in setups when there is a huge band or a big group of artists in studio. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to give everyone what they are expecting. Sometimes different opinions can stop the project for a while until we figure out what everyone wants, to be, of course, respectful to everybody's artistic vision. But for me personally, working with Carmen and being a huge fan of his work and have total trust of what he's going to do was very liberating, right? I can write anything. I can sing in any way I want. I know if it's not good, he's going to give me an honest feedback. I know he's going to push me and challenge me to do something better. So that big trust and the fact that we are just two of us, for me, was like a big eye opener and liberating, and allowed me to write differently. I never wrote this way before. I never sang this way before. My other performances, my other projects are completely different. And I feel the fact that I'm with someone I trust 100%, and communication is flexible. I know he's always there. he's always available, even if physically, like with time difference, he's not there. He's gonna eventually talk to me soon. Like it's not like we are in a setup of a studio in a month or two. Things has to be done at
Hmm.
that recording time, and that's it.
Mhm.
We have the freedom of time, and that's a huge plus. At least in songwriting, it's a huge plus to have that freedom.
It seems like you guys are enjoying this process, which is lovely to see. Okay, so music is a little different right now
Mhm.
because the visual component of it is super important, and you provided us with three videos. Fug Elna Hell, did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Great. La Rosa and Florece.
Mhm.
I don't know. That's okay. And My Heart's Desire. Um, what role does the visual play in this? And can you tell us a little bit, because we're going to play these videos. What how do you guys go about? Do you collaborate? How do you go about the visual aspect of this, knowing that most of the time that's how people are going to discover your music?
For For the visuals, right now we are doing the most simple. We are giving much more priority to the music, to be honest. But
Okay, great.
social media, lots of platforms these days are requiring some visuals to the music, and so we're trying to do our best to be present and be part of that.
Hmm.
Um, Personally, like Carmen's vision is more probably eclectic. My vision in general usually is just to deliver a little bit the idea of the song, because we also need to remember that most of our fans are based in North America,
Hmm.
and lots of languages that I'm performing are not necessarily in English. So I kind of try to make the visuals speak a little bit the language of the song and tell a little bit the story of what's going on in the song. So at least with the theme, with what's happening in the video and the lyrics translation, I can we can give our Western fans more idea on what's going on with our artistic piece.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And it's intriguing because a project like this, in this time that we're in, um, it has a lot of potential for experimentation because we're dealing with certain realities. And we had this conversation beforehand when Carmen and I first hooked up 20 years ago. The world was completely different. You know, downloads were just getting started. Napster was the big deal. I was in Cannes at Meriem, and it was
Mhm.
the year before Napster was Satan, and the year after Napster is sponsoring Meriem. So you're seeing the music industry just kind of flip. And obviously CDs were still a thing. Records were Nobody cared about records, and obviously records are back, cassettes are back now, streaming is here, and so everybody has access to everything. And so the old model of you like working in a studio and then putting out the object, the record, and then waiting for people to buy it and listen to it, that's kind of out the window, unless you're gigantic and people are waiting for you. But the delivery of that music, that thing, just relied on record stores and radios. Now it's on so many different platforms and it's in different formats. Like you can have a section of a song, and if that section of a song goes viral and people use your song for their own videos, you're still in there, but it's such a different environment than the one where you released something and it was the record. And that's the way it was an easy exchange. You buy my record, you give me money, I go on tour, etc.
Mhm.
Now things are in such a crazy flux, but there's more interesting ways for people to discover who you are. And when they discover who you are, and I've been thinking about this for quite a while because I'm dealing with a lot of different artists, they want to get to know you in a way that is strangely close and far at the same time. Like you presented some great reels, quote unquote, vertical, 1 minute,
Mhm.
90-second long pieces that'll end up on TikTok and Instagram and Shorts and Meta in general. But there's like um, different things that you're doing, different things about you, whether it could be the clothes that you're wearing, what's going on behind you, henna work. There's like this nuance. Everybody's got it's like you have your own magazine story. It's like, what are you listening to? What do you eat? Where do you go? What's happening? And that way allows you to produce so much of who you are through the music and about the music at the same time. I had this long conversation with an older artist who was he was working for 2 years on his record, and nobody knew where he was. He was like, well, I'm in a studio working. And I was like, you're going to release something, nobody's going to care about it. You need to tell the story of what you're doing
Mhm.
at the time, because that's how people connect with this. They're not just waiting for the record like they did back in the day. And it's super curious to me because I was listening to this record. I know your story. We spoke before, but things are accelerating at this hyperspace right now, where how people are creating work. And I go back to the story of the fact that it's a Tunisian tale, and if an artist is from a different part of the world, they suddenly have a platform to share that part of the world to everybody out there. Language isn't so much of a block anymore. You can create subtitles in different, you can do translations. It's just intoxicating about what you can do as artists in this space. And you're just getting started here. You just,
Mm.
I remember asking you, both of you, a while ago, when we were doing an interview, take a little video of your life around me, because people, they kind of expect it right now. It's like you don't have to go into all the details, but even a simple thing like, this is how I make my breakfast, that gets
But I think
millions
it's a
of
fine
views.
line, though, Derek. I think it's a fine line of what any artist wants to advertise, because I think every artist that I like wants more mystery, wants to be discovered and not force fed, like documenting every 5 seconds of your life. Unfortunately, you're right, because people's attention span is short. They want to know, what you're eating for breakfast, like you mentioned, or, what you're doing tomorrow. I struggle with that. I struggle with it because I want some mystery to my life and to my music. And I'm very sensitive of what I expose. But in the same breath, it's difficult because if you want any traction, you need the highway of social media.
You do.
So,
That's where it is right now. But it's interesting
yeah.
with you because you started as a producer. And I
Yeah.
remember when Niaz came out and you're doing that work, you were still
Mm,
like, you had Azam, and you
yeah.
always had somebody there. Like, you've kind of kept your anonymity pretty much in check. You've
Yeah,
got your equipment.
because, well, thank you. I mean, for me personally, it's a struggle for me. And this is one area, I guess, where Miriam and I might butt heads just a little bit, where content and, it's not science about the content and what people might want to see, or videos versus pictures, etc. But I always struggle with that because, one, it does change. It's like fashion, like anything, what's hot now or the topic. I don't know. I mean, we were very lucky and we were very surprised. I think I can speak for both of us that, we made this little record and etc. And it got some pretty good traction around the world, and we really didn't see it coming. And I can't explain how people heard it or discovered it. And it's hard to keep the momentum going because whether you're a big artist or small artist, it's not easy because it's like a wave, it comes and goes. But I definitely struggle with it. I don't know, Miriam, you might have a different opinion.
Yes, it's a struggle pretty much for lots of artists I know and music production students that I know, and because we want to be known, of course, by audience, but also we want to make sure what are we known for. Because what's happening with trends is that you put 2 videos eating breakfast, then you're gonna attract thousands of people interested in breakfast, and the day you put
Mm.
something about your music, they're gonna get bored. So so you have to be very, very careful on what to be known for. Um, it's kind of easy to get some attraction if you, even the algorithm of social media are made in a way that if you post something regularly 2-3 times a week, you're gonna have fans. But fans interested in what? That's a big question. Also,
Yeah.
our music is not the most traditional in North Africa, and it's not the most traditional in North America either. So it's gonna have always kind of a little bit limited audience, and we are kind of aware of that because of the language and everything. So to get it more, to get it to a wider audience, we need to work on the music itself, we believe, not on the social media, because social media can be tricky. It can be really very tricky.
But Derek, wouldn't you also say, for being a part of the world music, the global music scene around the world, this kind of music you can kind of discover later, which is to our advantage. I mean, unlike pop music, I mean, not to take away from pop music, but it kind of is unwrapped to serve right now.
Exactly. That's how I discovered Niaz, because the day I discovered one song of Niaz, I went and listened to all Niaz albums, and I was listening to them every single day. So it's going to take a little while. Our journey is probably going to be a little bit, going to take longer than if it was like a simple pop song in either culture there or here, but it's going to take a little while. But what I'm feeling from the few people who are already following us and messaging us and all that, like really solid fans who've been looking for these kind of unique styles, multicultural music styles.
No, it's true. It's true. That's a good analogy. It is that the pressure to be faster, I mean, and to get up there, and like you just see these insane numbers pop up, and it's like, why is that happening? And but it doesn't have to be instant. It's not like, one and done. I don't even know the right way to describe it, but you're right. It's not like unwrapped, eat it now, or it's just going to be gone. You can actually, and that kind of goes back to the initial point, is like how music was discovered. And you found things, I remember 1986, I discovered Fela, from a record that was recorded in 1972. And, that process, that like, where do you go? And then you go dig deeper and dig deeper and dig deeper. And suddenly I discovered Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. It's like, okay, where do we go here? It's not like you're sitting there and you're getting an implant like Matrix, and it's suddenly you're like, I know everything. There is an organic process.
But that's a good point, because it's the flip side of the oversaturation of how many records are coming out. Like we talk about on Spotify or Apple, thousands of records are coming out per day. But the positive thing, but the positive thing of that is, let's say you do discover an artist from Tunisia, whatever, however, then you go down that rabbit hole, and really quickly you're going to discover music from maybe 30 or 40 years ago. And then you're like, I don't really care if it came out 30 years ago. I really don't care, because I found it instantly, where before it was difficult to find music, Yeah.
And it becomes interesting because go ahead, please.
Sorry, also quality is important, because we all know that social media is going to require videos and photos, and that demands certain lighting and professional setup and all that. And we are working hard on delivering a certain quality of our music. And they have only 24 hours, right? We cannot, if I were spending that much time and effort on the music, if we do those quick selfie videos or whatever, they're not going to match the quality of our music. So we kind of also need to be a little bit careful and slow down on posting. It's rather to have a nice image or a nice video that matches the quality of the music, rather than something, blurry or foggy. So that's also something most artists are struggling with, is that photography, videography, all that, those are professional, serious jobs that require professional setup if we want to get them done right too.
Yeah. But I didn't want to go on a tangent with this, but it does beg the question of like fans and the kind of relationship you have with fans. I live in Seattle. Pearl Jam is still ongoing, in a way bigger than ever, and they've got this intense relationship with their fans. Like they get the first tickets, they get the first merch, and they're literally all over the world. And there's I know people that have worked for that fan group forever and ever, and it becomes really interesting, is that how do you build that relationship where you didn't have to in the past? I mean, obviously there were like magazines and you sign up for fans and you get stuff, but that relationship that you can now have with people that care about you, it's in flux. We're now in a really interesting space. Maybe in 2 years from now, the world will be very different. It probably will be, and this industry will be different. But I'm just super curious, is because we were talking about how you, Meriem, found Carmen through Niaz, and how Carmen and I found this music that was like, wow, I want to go dig deeper. There's a connection that's going on here. And being parents, all of us, you kind of see your kids and go like, okay, what's your journey? Where are you going? And I'm seeing my 13 and 17-year-old, their relationship with music really evolve in a really interesting way. Obviously, they're listening to a lot of stuff that I'm listening to here, but they have their own journey. They have their own approach to this thing that we love, that we built careers around. The vibrations that create tones, however you want to define music, that opens up us up in a really interesting way. And the reason why I'm interviewing you guys right now, outside of the fact that I like you, is I like the record. And I feel that the record this is important, to hear this language, to hear these cultures represented, to hear something bubble up that speaks in a way that you're presenting this right now, especially where the world is now. I think it's good for the heart, and I'm glad you did
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're both very, very, proud of the record. And like I said, we were really surprised, I have to say. Sure, the first few weeks, maybe we got a little perks, but it keeps going. And we're doing a remix record at the moment with some alternative mixes as well. It's not just remixes, but some alternate mixes. So we're kind of hoping on getting a little bit more momentum once we put this out, hopefully in June-ish.
Awesome. Yeah. So, records are great, but there's nothing like a live experience. Nothing.
Yeah, sure.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I would love to do some shows, but Miriam's in a little, and not to speak for you, but your children are much younger, so it's a little bit more complicated to just pop out for a few weeks. Yeah. For me, it's much easier, and especially in Europe, as you know, everything's so close. But
yeah, it would be intriguing to see. I just saw Azam and Logan were just in with Niaz, did a couple of shows here, and it was an intense experience. Obviously, a lot of Persians in the audience, and they did a version of the song that won the Grammy for Social Impact. I should know the name of the song. You know that the song was put together by all the tweets in Iran.
Yes, I don't remember the name, but I know the song. Yeah.
I wasn't going to speak about that. There was not a dry eye in the audience. Yeah. It was literally somebody just came up and said, like, this older woman went up to Azam, like, just stood up. They were going to be done, and they're like, she said, like, I'm here to hear that song. And they put it together, and it was like, I'm still getting proclaimed thinking about it, because it was such an intense experience. It's something about that, just creates, even if it's like a one-off, where you're having that audience. And it would be amazing if it was in Tunisia. You did it in Tunisia.
I'm not worried. When we do a show, people will cry, people will dance. When they hear Miriam's voice, it's going to be from another experience. So hopefully fans or non-fans will be, welcome to see us play. So let's see, let's hope. That's kind of on the agenda.
Inshallah.
Yeah, exactly.
I miss performing live. Yeah, I played a lot in Canada and the US, and I had like 10 years of continuous live performances, and I cannot even imagine how that's going to be with Carmen. But I think once we have like a nice repertoire, we just, as Didon, as a group, we only released the album this January. So basically it's just like 5 months since the record was released. I believe with the second record, we will have like a nice big repertoire that can hold an event just for ourselves. And it's something I am looking forward to. I'm sure it's going to happen.
And it's not to compare the two, but something that's rewarding for me is, if we're lucky to perform, is not only performing in front of your core audience, like in this case, Tunisian fans. I think when you have a fixed audience, it's wonderful, but it's not, for me personally, it's not as rewarding when you win someone over.
Oh yeah.
And I experienced that with a lot of bands that I've toured with, whether it was Niaz or Hunhar 2, or, you know, sure, there's your core audience, but like with Niaz as an example, yeah, there was always a fixed Iranian Persian audience that was going to be worshiping the music. But the moments that we would play and win someone over, to me, that was just, for me personally, more rewarding, because they don't know this. And with Meriem, just when anyone I play this record to, it's immediate first response. Oh my God, her voice, you know? And to me, that's what I'm most excited about, is to be performing when people can hear you sing.
Perfect.
Totally. I totally agree. Yeah, my experience in live performances was mainly in Canada and the US, and I've been like playing more Roma jazz and Arabic music, and pretty much I never sang a song in English during those 10 years of live performances. And as Carmen said, like winning the heart of someone who doesn't even know the language and connecting with the melody or with the voice or with the presence of the artist on the stage is just heartwarming.
Oh yeah. They'll never forget you.
Yeah.
They'll you make an imprint. It's like the first paint on canvas. It's like, okay, that's the vibe. I get this sometimes when I'm DJing, and I try to tell people, it's like, you can dance to the same music over and over again, but you have a completely different experience if you move to a sound that you've never heard before. You're dancing. It's like a new lover. It's like you're completely mesmerized by that instead of nostalgia. Meriem, Carmen, thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, Derek, I want to thank you for really pushing forward for not only us, but for the countless others that are in the same kind of boat as us. And you've always been a supporter of this music and forward thinking. So thank you, really.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
The band is called Didon. Their new record is called Tunisian Tale. There's a new remix record coming out in a little bit. Check them out. They're phenomenal. Obviously, we have a bunch of videos attached to this. And if you like what you're hearing, you like what you're seeing, please subscribe, like, and share so we can continue providing these beautiful stories from artists all over the world in these very interesting times. On Sama, South African Music and Art. Thank you all. Be well. Be safe.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Okay.